Here we are on a metal voice. Let me just get a picture of Perrin. Where's Perrin? As we get things going. And hold on, I didn't get you yet. Here we are. Now I got you. Let me just remove the live stream. There it is. Welcome to the Metal Voice on YouTube. I just want to know if everybody could hear us okay. If you can, just type if you're out there, if anybody's out there right now. I know a lot of people like to watch a little later on, but that's okay. I screwed up on the links that I sent everybody, so that's all cool. So today on the show, we're going to review 3 albums with my guest. My guest here. Friend, guest, Perrin Wolfson. The Wolf, I like to call him. Is that a nickname you had in
very
school?
appropriate, Jimmy. You got the Death Angel has a wolf theme going these days, so it's appropriate
Yes,
you have me as your
yes,
guest.
exactly. All right, so here we go. So today, Death Angel, the new album, Humanicide. Amon Amarth. What's the new album called again? Berserker.
Berserker.
Berserker. And of course, Loudness, or how we like to call it, Roudness, live in Tokyo. The video, the CD, the Japanese metal band from the East. So to start things off, let's talk about Death Angel. All right, so K-Man's telling me, Khalil, my buddy, K-Man's telling me, all good, picture and audio, a bit of a lag, but it's okay. We get a little bit of a lag when we're using YouTube. All right, so let's start off with Death Angel. Now, here's a band that you and me are big fans of. Historically, they start off as young teenagers in the Bay, the San Francisco, the Bay scene. Is that what they call it? The Bay scene? What do they call
San
it?
Francisco Bay Area. I think
Bay
a bunch of
Area.
them are from the East Bay, and yeah, they grew up in all the San Francisco clubs.
Yeah, I mean, these guys come out with, their first album. They're basically teenagers on skateboards. And wow, they just blew the world away. How technical and how thrashy they were and how yeah, just a great band, right? So tell me about the new album, Humanicide. What was your first thoughts when you first put it on?
My first thought hearing it, there's a few bands out there that are just really consistent. You always know what you're going to get, and their modern day output is as good or close to their early era, and that's what I thought when I heard this record right away. So, Humanicide, great record. The first single, Humanicide, was released last month. They just released the second single, The Pack. You can see the videos on YouTube, actually. The record doesn't come out till May 31st, but
Yeah.
these first 2 singles, and the whole record for that matter, it just thrashes from beginning to end. If you're a Death Angel fan, you're going to love what you're going to get. And I'll tell you, as a longtime Death Angel fan, what I really like, they branched out just a little bit. They started to show their influences. If you listen to this record, you'll hear that great Death Angel thrash, but you're also going to hear, a little Judas Priest in there, a little bit of Anthrax. I even heard a little bit of Sabotage in some songs. So, I don't know if they're getting inspired by their tour mates or just decided to show their influences a bit more. But, it's a typical Death Angel record, but it's also a little bit extra. They kind of tried a few extra things, and I really like that, actually, as a longtime fan.
Here's what I got to say about, like, right off the bat, if I want to break it down into guitar work, just the music in general, and then the vocals. Now, Mark Osiguera, which I've interviewed and I've spoken to, he's getting better as a vocalist. If you see the first album to this album, the sort of like the growth in terms as a vocalist. I mean, he's starting off sort of like a range, maybe about an octave, and now he's like really soaring up into the high register. And not only that, on this album, he's actually going in the lower register. So he's really growing as a vocalist. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Mark didn't even start as a singer. Mark started as their roadie. He was like their little cousin who would do all kinds of things for them. And then a couple years into Death Angel, before they recorded their first album, they got him to sing. And I think with every passing album, you saw it on the first 3 in their early days, from Frolic Through the Park, through the Ultraviolence into Act 3, he really started to sing more. And then in their latter days, once they got back together, culminating in this record, I completely agree with you. He's, doing more things with his voice. There's even a little bit of chanty, rappy stuff in here. There's some softer moments.
Rapping
But
stuff, okay. They've always had this sort of little bit of a rap going on in their verses. Surprised I'm back again. There's always that sort of rap that happens in all the verses throughout the history of the band. And
yep,
he's got his own little style, right? He kind of sings with a
absolutely.
little bit of a rap.
Look, I lived in the Bay Area years ago, and I lived there in an era when Death Angel had just broken up right before they got back together, and Mark was doing some other things. And one of the things he did was with a band called Swarm, which I'll encourage people to check out. If you're expecting Death Angel, it's not Death Angel. But Jim, what you just described, that's really what it was. It was kind of that swagger. It was a little bit of cock rock, a little bit of rap, a little bit of heavy metal in there. But anyone who wants to see what was happening when Death Angel was on hiatus, maybe check out what Mark was doing in Swarm. And I think in the latter day Death Angel albums, he's brought kind of a lot of what he did in the early days, added a little bit of Swarm and kind of just what he likes. And I think really now he's fallen into his own style. So the vocals on the new record are terrific.
Yeah, and I did, when I did talk to him, I met him twice, and I got to tell you, I asked him, I go, "You're just getting better and better." He goes, I practice, and I practice. This is a guy who's working on it. And you could see, again, I'll tell you, he was only doing an octave of his voice in the early albums. And now he's branching into the sort of like they call it the falsetto or the head voice. And now he's also, if there's also a song, the bonus track, he's actually going low. He's actually singing in his low tones. So you can see he's actually stretching as a vocalist. And again, using that little bit of a rap in his voice. What song stood out for you? What songs did you really like?
Well, first, it's funny. I was going to end with the bonus track, but I'll mention that bonus track at the end of the record, "The Day I Walked Away." That might be one of my favorite songs on the record, and just because it's not pure thrash. It's a little bit different, and I'll encourage everybody. Listen to the record from start to finish. Don't stop, then start. Take an hour, put on your headphones, and listen to the whole thing, because it's going to start off pure Death Angel thrash, but as you get into the middle and towards the end of the record, you're really going to hear some different things. So "The Day I Walked Away," the bonus track, not sure why it's a bonus track, but I think it's one of the best songs on the record. So
Agreed.
I think you and I agree there. So in terms of other things I liked, obviously the opening of the record, the title track, "Humanicide."
Actually, I disagree. I think it sounds too typical. Like it sounds like the last album.
But that's what I like. It does sound like the Moth from the last album, absolutely. But, I like that Death Angel gives their fan base what they want. First single, first song. If the lead-off track from an album isn't kind of what your fans want and are expecting, they might tune it out. So I love the fact, back to Seemingly Endless Time on Act 3, to the Moth on the last record, to Humanicide on this record, I just think they give their loyal fan base exactly what they want. So there's no doubt if you hear Humanicide, you're going to tune in for the rest of the record. So
to me, it's kind of like a false advertising, because I think Humanicide is not a representation of the rest of the album. I think it's just sort of, I agree with you. If you love Death Angel for who you are, then you'll love this track and you'll love what they do, right? But then, and that's cool. I mean, if you love that style, that's what they're doing. That's their stamp, basically. Divine Defector, what'd you think about that?
You know what? Wasn't on my list as one of my top songs. I didn't. What was that word in Some Kind of Monster that they used? Lars and Kirk, stock. So I know you were just talking about the typical Death Angel sound. It wasn't one of my favorites, Jim. I got to tell you.
I got to say this.
I liked
just from a vocal perspective.
Aggressor.
No, but hold on. But just from a vocal perspective, Divine Defector, what he's actually doing, and he didn't do this on the other albums, he's actually singing in his head voice the whole song. This is something that he's kind of touched on in the past, but he's actually singing in that sort of like, that Halford Highs, the whole song, and it's brutal. It's got to be one of the most brutal songs that they've ever done. And again, he's branching out as a singer. And you're right. Maybe it's not for everybody, but to me, this is like a brutal song. I love this song.
I'm going to tell you, I have some notes that I took on the record. So I gave the track Humanicide a 10 on 10. I gave Define Defector a 7, and it's probably the lowest grade I gave on the album.
I put 10 out of 10 on that one. I'm a crazy guy. 10 out of 10.
That's why we're here, Jim. That's why we're here. So, I wrote that I thought it was a little overproduced for my tastes. I put that I thought it was missing a signature Death Angel hooky riff. There you get one at the end, but it was a little too late. And I just thought the song was a little all over the place. So, if Humanicide and a couple others were my high, the Divine Defector was one of my lows. But having said that, my low is like a 7 on 10. So, any Death Angel's good Death Angel. It wasn't my favorite, but it's a good track.
I loved it, but it's okay. We all love a little bit of something else, right? Aggressor. This is like the Slayer. This is like the Slayer song, I would think.
Yeah, and that's 8 on 10 for me. I love the intro, hooky riff. This is the song I was talking about where Mark kind of does a bit of a chanty kind of rap style in the verses. There's kind of like a gang vocal chorus.
Spacey synths. If you listen carefully in the background, there's like some sort of spacey
Yeah,
synths going on there.
yeah. I heard like a little Judas Priest in the middle of the song, and I really thought Rob and Ted did some amazing back and forth guitar work on this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I thought it was a really you got the Death Angel chugga chugga guitars happening. Yeah, solid 8 on 10 for me. Really really good track.
For me, the Aggressor was like a 9 out of 10 because I just love that sort of Slayer aggressive sort of verse or sort of chorus. And what about I Came for Blood?
Yeah, that what I really like. That was one of my
Solid,
favorites.
solid.
I like that Will got a little love and he had a little drum intro to start the song because Will is just an amazing drummer. I can't say enough about, we all talk about members of bands with member changes, but the new-ish rhythm section in Death Angel, Will and Damien, just an
Yeah.
amazing rhythm section. So Will gets featured a little bit in this one. I heard a little Ace of Spades in there. I heard a little bit of Free Will Burning. It's a short song,
I love it. No, it's catchy. It's
short
quick.
burst of energy song in the middle of the record.
This is
or
the
fourth
track
song.
that people will remember. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I thought it was classic Death Angel.
Immortal Behated.
A little long for me.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit long. I liked there was a mellow intro, some nice guitar work in there, and then the song really shifts gears kind of into a mid-tempo kind of an anthem. A lot of time changes, and maybe my problem with the song is, it's not always easy to follow time changes. There's kind of a cool piano outro, but, honestly, this is one of the longer songs on the record.
Epic, right? Like the song
Yeah,
Epic by Faith No More.
it's a Death Angel version of an epic. It's like
right.
It's not quite Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but at 6 minutes, it's actually pretty long for a thrash Death Angel song. And yeah, I had that one kind of in the middle of the pack as well in terms of the record.
Immortal
Good,
Behated for me
not
was
that
a
good.
big melody, a big chorus, and I love the friggin' technical stuff and the time changes that are going on. I don't know, a little bit of keyboard sampling there, 10 out of 10 for me. Alive and Screaming, to me, was very melodic, super chorus, maybe a little bit generic here and there, but overall very catchy. What'd you think about
Yeah,
Alive
I
and
thought it was
Screaming?
brutally heavy. I thought we were back to that brutal Death Angel sound that we all love. I thought that one was kind of a classic sounding song for them. Solid, like an 8 on 10 for that one for me.
All right. Okay, cool. And just to go through them quickly, we don't want to bore with everybody with songs they haven't heard before. But The Pack, which I found a poor choice of a single.
Yes, I
I
agree
mean,
with you.
there was so many great bigger songs, and to me, this was sort of like the Anthrax Judge Dredd song. If you listen to the riff itself, you think Anthrax right away. But again, they're stretching, right? And there's a rap going on there in the verse.
Yeah, so I heard some Anthrax, Among the Living Era Anthrax in there, but I agree with you. I don't know if I would have made it the second video and single. Again, they have that Wolf trilogy theme going on, so that's
where
kind
you're
of why
on.
they put the song out. I totally see like a Circle Pit opportunity. It's probably a song that's going to be in their live set. But yeah, it wouldn't have been a single for me. I think it's a good song.
Me too.
It actually reminds me a lot of the Thrown to the Wolves from a couple of albums ago. You have that, whoa happening in there.
Yes,
So
the gang vocals.
I think it's one of those songs that's going to come across better live than it did on the record.
Agreed.
But it wouldn't have been my second single.
And of course, Ghost of Me. I think that's a
Love
killer track. It's a great track.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Technical.
9 on 10 for me. Heavy intro. I kind of said that I could see this being like a good 1-2 punch to open the show. Humanicide going first, this going second. Again, back to those gang vocals. There's one song on every album where Damien that gets to do a nice flashy bass run, and this is the song. So it's a prominent chunky bass line. Damien gets a little solo spot. It was actually my second favorite song on the record.
And of course, Revelation Song. This I think is a killer track in the sense that, again, it's another memorable song, reaching out, different than, it's not your traditional thrash, it's a traditional metal song. And the solo is just like kicking.
Yeah, I kind of called this, it has a little swing and a little groove in there, like really, and it's typical Death Angel and it's not. So yeah, it's thrash, but Death Angel always have these moments in songs where they do a little breakdown and they kind of like rock out a little bit, and they kind of get away from the thrash and they do something a little different, and it's one of those songs. I'll say it, when people hear this record for the first time, listen to it the full way through.
Yes,
because
agreed.
in my mind, 3 of the last 4 songs are among the best songs on the record.
And of course,
Ghost of Me, Revelation Song, and then the bonus track that we mentioned, The Day I Walked Away. For me, those are among the best songs. So you gotta listen to this one from start to finish. because the record starts strong and it ends really, really strong.
And then of Rats and Men, I would say this is the tribute to Loudness. If you listen to the bridge, it sounds like Minoru. Now the whole song doesn't sound. It's very, very Loudness like. I'm not saying it is a Loudness song. I'm just saying there's some vocals that are very, stamped with Loudness on them.
Yeah, again, if there were 2 or 3 songs that I would put at the bottom, kind of 7 on 10, 7.5, this would have been one of those sevens also.
All right, give me an overall rating of this album. Let's just cut to the chase here.
8.5 out of 10.
I would rate it.
I actually did the math. Can I give every song a rating?
Yeah, me too.
I did the math.
I do that too.
It's a solid 8.5 on 10. Is it the best ever Death Angel record? No. For me, that's Act 3. But is it up there with the work that they've done since they reunited in the early 2000s? Absolutely. It's a solid, more than a solid record. I think
I would take it a step further, and I think this is the best Death Angel album out there. And if I was to rate it, I'd probably put it more conservative for myself. 8.8 out of 10. I won't go 9 because I need time to think if it's going to be a 9 come the future, right? So yeah. I would definitely put it an 8.8 out of 10, sorry. It's a super, and this is an album, if you got to listen to it all the way through 3 times to really fully comprehend the technique, sort of the technical thrash that's going into this, the vocal delivery that's going into this. These guys are burning. These guys are in their 50s now, and they're like just getting better as musicians, as songwriters, and just, as playing live as they could.
Yeah, and I think the other reason to really listen to it once, twice, 3 times is I really think it's one of those records that every time you listen to it, you're going to hear a little something else.
Yes,
and you're going to say, oh, I missed that last time. I missed that. And like I said, little infusion of Priest, a little infusion of Anthrax, a little infusion of classic Death Angel. But every time you listen to it, there's going to be a little nuance. And that's what I like about Death Angel. Thrash can be a pretty straight ahead, not experimental genre. And I think Death Angel is the one band in the genre who will branch out and try some different things. So every time you hear this record, you're going to pick something else up. And I think it's a classic. I think all their records are really good. But for me, like I said, solid 8.5. Maybe if I listen to it again, it becomes a 9.
Yeah.
Really, really happy with the record. Really happy for the guys. They're on tour with Overkill right now.
Yep.
And I'm really hoping
Nuclear
to come our way.
Blast. Yeah, coming out on Nuclear Blast. And I'll tell you everybody the date here. Bada bing, bada boom, May 31st. There we go. Yeah. Humanicide, their 9th studio album on May 31st on Nuclear Blast. Go pick it up. All right, let's switch gears. Something I don't do often, okay? Talking about death metal vocals. Amon Amarth Berserker.
Metal.
Berserker. Something I don't really do. It was released on May 3rd on Metal Blade Records. Overall, yesterday.
Came out yesterday.
So, look, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we're not going to go through every single track, but let's just get an overall impression, a rating, and songs that stood out for you. So
okay,
go ahead.
Look, first off, I'll say, these guys have been around a long time. They're coming on 18, 19, 20 years now. It's their 11th record. And, if you're paying attention, they're starting to move up the bill at the European festivals. They're starting to play like 2,000 seaters in North America, which is really, really good for a death metal act. So, there's some buzz about these guys. So, full disclosure, I'm the one who wanted to review this record. I was saying to Jim that we should do this. And again, it's not our genre that we're that used to or that we talk about that much on the Metal Voice. But I can see why they're one of the more popular bands in the genre. The guitars, some really, really good riffs in here. Of all the death metal bands I've heard, a lot of them are kind of known for their riffs. And every song on this record has a solid riff. The knock on death metal is kind of the vocals and, to use the cliche, the Cookie Monster vocals. But I will say they call themselves melodic death metal. And the vocals on this record are a little cleaner than a lot of death metal, which I think makes them a bit more accessible. And, look, I was able to listen to the album all the way through.
True.
It's a 7 on 10 for me. It's not like this life-changing record. It's not, one of those things that's going to be one of the jewels of my collection for years to come. But I could see why they're gaining popularity. Solid 7 on 10, mostly for the guitar work and the fact that the vocals were a little cleaner than most death metal records. What do you think? What do you think, Jim?
You know what? I don't like death metal vocals because I associate death metal vocals like it's like playing guitar with one string. You're basically limiting yourself. So here I am playing with one string. Here is my contribution. But Saying that, I think it was a super melodic album with a great production. I went back into their catalog and I listened to their music. And I gotta say, this album is probably one of their better albums, at least for me, from a guy who doesn't like death metal, because I can actually listen to it. Like you said, I can
Yeah.
actually listen to this album throughout because it's not annoying like most death metal
Yep.
albums.
Again, they call themselves melodic death metal. So, I guess that means they've toned it down a little bit from what you'll see in the typical death metal
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
act. And again, they're gaining a lot of popularity. They're winning some new fans. Like I said, 2,000 seaters in North America, moving up the bill in a lot of festivals in Europe. And, good for them. You like to see a band kind of evolving a little bit and maybe listening to the fan base. And
I mean, how many songs can you talk about Thor? That's what I'm getting at. But
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, look, there's a lot of bands that do that.
I mean Thor. Even Thor
There's
talks about Thor. But
yeah,
but
they should do the soundtrack for an Avengers movie. They'd be really good at doing that. But you're right. Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, look, people would make fun of Dio back in the day and say it was all about Dungeons and
rainbows.
Dragons.
How many times did he mention
Yeah,
rainbows in his lyrics?
power
Rainbow,
metal
rainbow,
cliche
rainbow.
and that kind of thing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I got to tell you this: the songs that really stood out for me, what I really enjoyed, are Shield Wall. If you remember, and Iron Side, I like that a
Yep.
lot. And Shield Wall, because I really felt like I was going to war. When I was listening to these songs, I felt like I was going to war. But then it gets a little corny sometimes, like Into the Dark, kind of boring. Because it's sort of like repeat, repeat, repeat. And you know what I find? I was kind of singing these songs or humming these songs. And if you sing it really clean, you could get a really great album out of this. If this album was sung really clean, let's say Jeff Tate sang this album, it would be a phenomenal album. So the
Yeah.
melodies are very, very strong on this album.
Look, they can, subject matter aside, they can write music, right? There are
Definitely.
some really interesting things happening musically on this record. I like the way the record started. The first three tracks, Fafner's Gold,
Me too.
Crack the Sky, and you mentioned Hammer of Thor. I thought the record started off really, really great. It grabs you. I think the reason why I had it as a 7 is then it kind of levels off and gets very
It does.
repetitive. So
It
it's
does.
kind of like
It does.
first three songs are great, and then the next three songs are a repeat of the first three songs, and then the next three songs are a repeat of the first three songs. And then I think again towards the end of the record, you got a few epics in there and
Yes.
a few kind of chanty kind of things that all the Vikings can get together with their brew and sing about wenches and all these kinds of things.
I feel like going to
So
war
I
when I
thought
was
the
in
record started well and ended well. I just thought it got a little flat in the middle. But again, it's
That was a very good way to put it. Good way to put it. Good way to put it. I agree with everything. Yeah, for me, it's like a 7.8 out of 10 because maybe if I was a bigger death metal fan, I would enjoy it more. But it kind of puts me off. But it is still a very good album, and I listened to their back catalog, and I think this is one of their better ones. If I was to judge and assess the situation in terms of production, in terms of melody, in terms of guitar work, like you mentioned, or just basically how they play their instruments, it sounds great.
And look, they're having some success. Great for any heavy metal band in any genre to have some success. Look, of the records that we're talking about today, Death Angel, Amon Amarth, and Loudness coming up, this is the one that's probably going to get the most attention worldwide.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to chart in the US. It's not going to chart in the top 10, but it's going to chart in the top 200. It's going to make a little bit of noise.
All right, there you go.
Look, good for them.
Amon Amarth, new album Berserker. It was just released yesterday on Metal Blade. And now let's do this. Let's do this. Loudness. One of my favorite bands, for all the people out there, they probably already know this. One of my favorite bands is Loudness. I've been following them since, MZA days till today, from Disillusion days to, their last albums. And they got a new live album. So it's a new live album. It's on Ear Music on May 17th. I think that's in Asia. And then in USA and Canada, it'll be at the end of May. Now, this album contains 2 CDs live. One of the CDs is mostly of their 80s period, which is Thunder in the East. The second CD covers most of the Law of Devil's Land and Disillusion era. And then you have the live DVD, which is, wow, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I'm one of those people that I discovered Loudness in about 85, 86. The Crazy Nights video was all over, whether you watched MTV or Much Music in Canada. They burst onto the, North American scene with their 5th album, Crazy Nights. And, I was 14, 15 at the time, and I loved it. And I was lucky enough in 1986, I got to see Loudness open for AC/DC. I met them at an in-store where Stéphane Giroux worked, actually, and saw them open for AC/DC. It was one of the first dates of the Lightning Strikes tour. So they were doing a lot of those songs from Thunder in the East and Lightning Strikes. And I love the band. There was probably like a period from 85, 86 into the early 90s when they changed singers at the beginning that I loved this band. And then I kind of lost track of Loudness a little bit. I mean, I think you kind of know that, the record company pressure got to them. They fired Minoru. They went with an American singer. Mike Viscera was actually pretty good. The 90s came, a lot of lineup changes. So I got to say, I lost track of Loudness in the 90s. And reviewing this record totally brought me back because, like you said, the first disc, it's such a well put together package. It replicates the set list from the Thunder in the East tour in 1985. So if you like that Thunder in the East record and some of the earlier stuff, that's disc 1, done live now. Disc 2, like you said, is their third and fourth releases that were released in Japan before Thunder in the East, Disillusion and Law of the Devil's Land. And then what I love about the DVD, it's a completely different set.
It is, yeah.
It's their last album from 2018.
Which is incredible, by the way, and which I love their last album, by the way.
And, well, again, I wasn't that aware of it, and now I'm aware of it having heard this live record. So, if you ask me my thought on this package, as a package, it's a 10 on 10. Since I've heard it, I've been like humming Loudness songs in my head all day and going back and discovering things. Yeah. And, that's what you want a record to do, right? And what I think is really, really great for fans, or even if you're just discovering them, it's a 3-record set, but it's 3 very different things. Like I said, the Thunder in the East set list, a set list from their 3rd and 4th album only, and then the DVD is classics.
Parent. The DVD, I'll tell you what sticks out for me in the DVD. First of all, how tight this band is.
Yes.
You as you watch them play, you go, man, these guys are pros. And then I'm watching Akira Takasaki. He is like ripping. This guy is like a guitarist. Forget about Yngwie Malmsteen. I love Akira because he can just play. He could play it all.
Akira is the Japanese Eddie Van Halen. That's how I describe him. I mean, his hammering, his riffs, his soloing. Akira Takasaki is an amazing guitar player. If he was American, if he was in one of those kind of LA kind of bands coming up in the 80s, we would hear so much more about him. Akira's playing is amazing. Minoru, Minoru
I love Minoru. I love
Minoru. He's almost 60 years old.
Yeah.
And he sounds great on these records.
Amazing.
And then Masayoshi Yamashita, the bass player.
Amazing.
Talk about a tight bottom end.
And Suzuki's whoever did the production and the mix.
Yeah. Whoever did the production and the mix of these records, gold star, gold medal, because I was listening to this with headphones, and I got to tell you, having this on the headphones, the mix was perfect. The production was great. This was my surprise of the week. I thought I was going to come on here and rave about the Death Angel record, which I kind of did. But for me, the surprise here is this. This is a 10 on 10 for me. This is just, it's a package that's well worth your money, and it's a package that makes you kind of rediscover Loudness like I did.
Yeah, the sound on the DVD is incredible. And you know what I love about... So I don't know if you're too familiar with their last album, but the live setting sort of reinvigorated their last studio album, just because it was meant to be live. There's a bonus track on the live DVD too. You have the guys from Riot 5, Mike Flintz, Donny Van Staveren, and Todd Michael Hall. They do a guest appearance on For Crazy Nights. I mean, it's a little rough, I would say, but overall the feeling and the vibe is all cool.
The energy is amazing.
Oh, yeah, the energy is incredible.
It was recorded in Japan. So for people who don't know, it was recorded at a festival last year.
4 nights.
4 nights. And the way this festival worked is Loudness headlined this festival all 4 nights, doing a different set list. And then on the different days, different bands supported them. So Riot 5 was kind of the almost co-headliner for one of the nights and came out and jammed on Crazy Nights with them, which is captured on the DVD.
Yeah.
And you feel that energy. You feel the love. I mean, how many bands, I don't care if it's their hometown or not, can do 4 nights in a decent-sized venue, a different set list every night, and the crowd was just going crazy. So you kind of feel the energy through the DVD. You hear it a little bit on the audio of the CDs. What a great package. I mean, I don't have enough. Yeah. Yeah, it makes them interesting. I mean, look, Minoru had to work really when I met them at an in-store in September 86 when they were opening for AC/DC, and they spoke almost no English whatsoever. Think about how hard that is. Minoru had to learn how to sing phonetically. So
Yeah,
they would
yeah.
write the songs in Japanese, they would do loose translations to English, somebody would help them with it, and they would record them. And then he had to kind of learn to sing just basically the phonics of each song because he didn't completely know what he was saying. So, that's an added element that most bands didn't have to deal with in the 80s. And they pulled it off pretty flawlessly.
Yeah.
When you were watching Crazy Nights or Let It Go or any of those videos, you wouldn't think the singer, barely knew how to speak English. So that
My
was a
my
flaw.
audio was out there for a second, but I'm just going to repeat what I said. So just heads up, everybody. The first three albums by Loudness are in Japanese, even though the song titles are in English.
Yeah.
And except for Disillusion, their third album, they redid it in English lyrics as well to sort of like capture the English markets. And so just heads up on that. So even on this album, the versions that go for the first any songs that are done on the first three albums, they are in Japanese. They're singing in Japanese. It's fine by me. Again, to me, the DVD is a perfect mix of the old and the new, and it's just I wish actually there was a CD version of the DVD, right? Because
Yeah.
to me, I love that set list. I think it's an incredible set list. It's the
Yeah.
old with the new.
But something for everyone. Like I said, you
Yeah,
can't go
agreed.
wrong with two different discs and the DVD, all with slightly different set lists and different vibes to them. Kudos really to their management and to them. Really, really well done package.
Yep, and they're hitting the tour trail. At least from my understanding, is they're playing in Australia or they played in Australia. Of course, Rise to Glory was their last album, which was released. Oh man, maybe now a year, 2 years ago. I spoke to
Yeah,
Minoru.
early 2018.
Yeah, I spoke to Minoru. We had an interview not too long ago, maybe about a year and a half ago. I know Neil Turbin did an interview with him. Great guy, just a wealth of knowledge. And hats off to them. And I think definitely go pick up this album. This is like a killer live album if you love Loudness. And if you don't, it's a good way to sort of like get to know them. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun actually, and hope everyone dug the reviews. And Jimmy and I were joking that we got to get online and do an Iron Maiden debate. We've had some hot debates happening on the site these days with the Iron Maiden voting. So let's get together soon, do a little Iron Maiden debate, talk about some Judas Priest set lists. But thanks for having me, Jim. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Great job. So for Iron Maiden, there are three albums left. There's Peace of Mind. There's
It's gonna be
Power
a death match,
Slave.
man.
Iron Maiden, Power Slave, Peace of Mind, and Number of the Beast. Now,
Nobody get angry. There's some angry comments. That Killers versus Somewhere in Time thing was getting a little bit nasty. So
yeah, actually, that had
it's
the
all
most
it's all
votes.
good, people. It's all good. It's all good.
I was really pulling for Killers. I just wanted them to get to one more round. I knew later
Jimmy,
on
but
it'd
I'm
be tough.
proud of you, Jimmy. Your bias didn't show, and somewhere I voted for Somewhere in Time on that one. No one get mad at me. I have my reasons, but I think we're getting down to the good stuff now. So Peace of Mind, Power Slave, Number of the Beast. It's going to be pretty hot the next few days. So
Yeah.
once it's done, we should get here and maybe debate that a little bit because that
Okay.
was
Yeah.
some fun stuff is happening on the
I
metal.
was thinking of actually every poll that the next three poll or the next two polls, a debate on the next two polls. I just don't know if I have the time though. We'll see. We'll
Hey,
see.
you know what? We got to make time for the things we love. So you want me to debate? You want me to debate someone else? We can do that.
All right,
Let's
man.
have some fun.
All right, guys. Thanks
All
for
right.
tuning in, everybody, and subscribe. And
Peace.
thanks, Baron. Bye.
Thanks a lot.